Hello, guys, and welcome to FIAT LUX. Today on the show, we have Captain McAteer and Grav, who are the founders of FIRN Protocol. Captain is the head cryptographer and engineer, and Grav is head of business development, marketing, and relations. So how's it going, guys? Welcome to the show.
Good, thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you, and I'm interested to dive into FIRN Protocol and some, the issues of privacy and, all the things that are related concepts. Hopefully we can educate some viewers today, like I say, to so they can understand FIRN Protocol a little bit better, and, learn something about like what's going on in society, why this stuff is necessary, etc. So I guess the first question that I want to ask, what is FIRN Protocol?
So FIRN is a couple things. The way I said it on the Twitter space for Lunar DAO the other day, essentially that it's on the one hand a protocol. It's a cryptographic technique that gives you privacy in theory. It's also an implementation of that protocol, and on the Ethereum blockchain and on certain Ethereum-based L2s. And it's also a community and a brand and a group of people sort of working on this project and this sort of collective sum of our values and philosophies and things like that. But first and foremost, it's a privacy protocol.
Right. Yeah. So it's you can do private transfers, private withdrawals, and very especially what we do is private contract interactions as well.
Yeah, so just a bit more technically, you can think of FIRN as something like a private wallet that lives on chain, right? So you can sort of deposit funds into FIRN. You can then withdraw them back to the network, and that withdrawal will happen in such a way that you can't publicly link which deposit and which withdrawal are connected. This is done using zero knowledge proofs. But you can do much more too, right? So you can also transfer to other FIRN users totally privately. So in this case, both the sender and the receiver and the amount would all be private, right? And again, as Grav said, FIRN is a tool for sort of general privacy in DeFi and actually in Ethereum at large, right? So actually what you can do with FIRN is you can almost do anything that a regular wallet can, right? So if you want to call a contract or make a trade or something, you can call that contract as FIRN, right? So, almost like all anybody sees is that some FIRN user did this action, but you wouldn't see which one. So we want to sort of expand the envelope of what privacy means on Ethereum, going from something where you can just sort of put in ETH and take it out to something much more complex.
Okay. There's a few things you said there that I want to touch on, and I guess we'll just work backwards. You said just said about privacy on Ethereum, and I guess. What does privacy mean to you? So, obviously you just kind of explained like the basic workings of FIRN. But I'm wondering like, what does it mean? I guess what are the values and philosophies behind FIRN?
Yeah, so privacy is something that has many sort of layers and ways to make it precise or less precise. On a more precise level, it essentially means the ability to own and use Ether in such a way that you are not sort of disclosing full information about the history of that. And this is just a very basic thing, which has massive demand, by the way. I mean, just everyday users. It's very natural that they would want to have control of their ETH and not have full visibility. Especially people who want to say join Lunar DAO, and that's a whole another conversation. So on the one hand, it's something very sort of specific, but as you said, it's also a set of values and philosophies. We at FIRN think that in general we I at least have a bias towards individual freedom, and I'm interested in how cryptography gives us sort of a tool in the toolbox to achieve that. I think blockchains are no exception. Generally the use of, say, encrypted chats and Signal and things like that has really started from something that was viewed as niche or fringe, and then turned into something that basically everybody does. We think that there's an analogy with movement of funds, right? I think that, on Ethereum, especially if Ethereum is going to grow and become some bigger part of society, you're going to need some level of funds privacy, for the same reason that, we use WhatsApp or Signal and things like that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, for me, it's privacy is the foundation of freedom and liberty, really. It's how you are able to talk to other people, to transact with other people in a way that, you are allowed to be truly who you are. And you don't have to be worried about other people or governments or what have you looking in on you and, analyzing every little thing you do, even if it's, Google analyzing every little thing you do. There's just that privacy is so incredibly important. And I think it's something that people haven't really thought about too much in the past, because in the past it was really pretty easy to have privacy. All you had to do was go in a room where there aren't other people there and you have privacy. But now, we don't have that anymore. It's every room you go into, you're carrying a phone, and everything you search on the internet, Google or Amazon, they're collecting that. And like Captain was saying, as Ethereum scales, and it will, and become much more of a kind of standard everyday thing people use for payments and whatnot, there really is an unmet need for efficient, fast, simple privacy, and we hope FIRN can provide that.
Yeah, right. So as sort of the ability to surveil, or the electronicness of everything increases, right, the need for privacy also increases. So, this is becoming more urgent. This is not just, us suddenly deciding that we want privacy because of some other reason. It's because we actually need it more, right? But yeah, I do want to say one other thing about this point I made about how privacy enhancing technologies sort of start maybe on the edge and become more mainstream. I mean, I think another side to this is how easy they are to use, right? When something is, extremely technically complicated, then it is sort of viewed as maybe fringe for good reason, right? And you would only use it if you had some really exceptional case or something, right? But as it becomes easy to use, it becomes much more normal. And I think that arguably we're doing that for privacy on chain with FIRN, right? Because our tool is much easier to use. It's much more stable and works better, has fewer bugs, more efficient than previous techniques.
Okay, I think that's an interesting thing. Maybe just to, touch on for a second. You mentioned like there was this kind of like push or this wave where where Signal came about, and then it became the norm. What do you think that was from? What do you think, in your opinion? How did you see that playing out? Why all of a sudden did people start caring about end-to-end encryption and encrypted messaging and things like that?
So I'm not a historian of technology or anything, but from my view, I sort of see it in this way, right? Around the 90s, when widespread use of the internet started happening, you now have the ability for people to essentially chat with each other on a massive scale electronically, and then either encrypt it or not. And then it sort of became a topic of debate. Should we allow people to have end-to-end encryption, right? There was a time when the U.S. government just plain didn't want it at all, right? They wanted every chip to have some kind of backdoor where if there was a warrant, then they could just decrypt it. I think it's called the Clipper chip or something. You can look this up. But yeah, there was a time when it was sort of not a settled proposition whether individuals should be able to use cryptography with local keys that would not be sort of subject to exposure on demand, right? And there were two sides, and the sort of battle got fought, and continually up until the 2010s or even early 2020s, there were still people trying to prevent end-to-end encrypted chats from existing, right? Like, you get lawmakers who subpoena WhatsApp and say, we want the chats. And it's like, guys, like, I don't think you know how this works, right? Like, we just can't do that. So, it kind of seems absurd now, but this is a very real thing. And, now the tide has been sort of settled definitively in the favor of end-to-end encrypted chats, but it wasn't always this way.
Yeah. And I feel like I think in many ways, the corporate surveillance of our activities, our buying habits, I think it's just when somebody is, searches for, like a couch or something on Google, and then they're seeing ads for couches on their Amazon TV, or even the stranger things, but I'm sure we've all had happen is you're talking about buying a couch and then you get an ad for a couch, and
yeah,
and I think
totally happened.
Yeah, and it's I think that people are just seeing that, and they're thinking, wow, this makes me feel uncomfortable, and I don't want this to be happening anymore, and I especially don't want it to be happening in my private chats with other people. And I think that's where the big surge in signal use came from. And now it's become normal. And of course, we think that needs to happen on Ethereum and really in crypto in general. Is privacy just needs to be normal. And I think it will be very soon.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point you also made earlier that sort of relates to this about, how our kind of, we used to be, everything was private by default, and that kind of slipped away from us, and there was a debate early on, and I think maybe this points to kind of like, the sort of force of the power of the flow of capital. I would imagine, as you said, yes, there were, debates going on about this, but then, there's these companies and these whatever government bodies or whatever that kind of like accelerated the growth faster than we could like iron out the issues and say, whoa, like, do we want this? And that's something that's kind of gotten away from us. And yeah, I guess in the same sense that the same thing, right, is happening with the crypto ecosystem, right? We're like, this new thing's come about, we started using it, we're getting like, we got so we got some good numbers, right, in the crypto space. It's not like super fringe anymore, but we're coming back again. This cycle of like the debates are happening now, and like, are we gonna let like the VCs, the Googles, whatever, we're gonna let them take over, and like just the force of capital will just take us with, we'll just go with that tide, or are we gonna, kind of like put our foot down or interject, the path, and I guess this is kind of what FIRN's trying to do, right? You're trying to offer up a solution and sort of riding that wave as people are coming in and trying to establish yourself as. Or even establish the values themselves as like a standard.
I recently I watched a video on a totally separate topic about on AI and about these sort of general language models. And these people were making this point that, look, like we have not agreed as a society yet that this is a good idea, right? Like, these things are developing extremely fast, and maybe we want it or not, but we have to have the debate, because there can be massive consequences. We just don't know how this thing will sort of behave in society yet, and I think there's a similar point about privacy, right? Like, we have had technological advances which have massively reduced our privacy, right? Things like smartphones everywhere and ad targeting. And I couldn't point to one sort of point where somebody has said, look, we should figure out as a society if we want this or not, right? Like, let's assemble a panel of experts who can sort of say this, this side and that side, and at least we'll have the discussion and everybody can watch it or something like that. I don't think that's happened for privacy. There's been, I don't know, there definitely some bad press on privacy. But the conversation about if it's a good thing or not, I haven't seen. I think, but yeah, as you said, I think we want to make that conversation happen and offer an additional, at least some tools.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess just before we kind of move back to FIRN, are there anything? Is there anything in the AI space? I've heard you talk about the AI a couple of times. Is there anything in the AI space that you're interested in? You think that looks promising right now?
I follow it only on a very sort of non-expert level. Grav,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using GPT-4 for, kind of less trivial and more trivial things. I mean, from, helping me write some complicated Excel formulas to, I have these things in my fridge. What meal can I make?
Yeah.
But in a way, it's scary, but I'm hopeful that it's going to be something good for the world. But I guess time will tell.
I personally find that the image generator is just the coolest, right? Like Midjourney and stuff. I've seen things come out of those which are just completely mind-blowing.
Yeah, and I mean the sort of synthesis of kind of both the things you were talking about. So you can do like like I've got these ingredients, make the meal, and then you can be like, depict the meal. What would this meal look like if I made it well? Right. So yeah, that's kind of cool. So just to get back onto FIRN, I think I'll we'll go to kind of the basics. So what are the problems with sort of existing privacy services as you see it? Obviously, you gave me like the short version of what FIRN is. So like, what are the problems you're trying to solve? Or how does FIRN try to address these problems?
Yeah, so there are many different metrics that you can evaluate a privacy project on, right? Obviously, you have things like, is it actually correct? Is it actually secure? Things like that. But once you get beyond that, you have questions of efficiency, and this gets measured in a couple different ways. And you also have questions about the security sort of guarantees, right? For example, does the liveness of this protocol depend only on Ethereum's liveness, or does it depend on some sort of extra third-party infrastructure that the project set up, right? You even have subtle questions like, does this thing cache state in your browser or on your machine or not, right? If it doesn't, obviously that's better. So there are a bunch of metrics. I can try to sort of get to them one by one, but sort of the biggest one is how much work does your wallet have to do in order to learn your own account state and interact with the system and generate proofs and all those sorts of things. As I said, many metrics. I don't want to oversimplify it, but the sort of one biggest difference with FIRN is that because of our architecture, and we have a totally different architecture than other projects use, which again I can explain in a bit, but because of it, our client, which runs in the browser, in an application that you access through your browser, is extremely efficient. It can learn your account state by downloading just an extremely small amount of data. It doesn't have to sort of synchronize and catch up, right? So many other projects, you need to stay online and keep sort of downloading stuff in order to stay up to date and cache all that, right? And then if you turn your computer off or disconnect and then rejoin like a month later, let's say, you then have to, first of all, use your checkpoint that you cached a month ago, and then download all the new stuff and sort of bring your data up to date. All of this is really problematic because of data download requirements, computational requirements, data caching requirements. FIRN, on the other hand, is totally stateless. You can log in from a completely brand new device. You can download your state in like under a kilobyte. It's really tiny, and it's extremely efficient.
Right. So, yeah. And I mean, just as an example, like before Aztec was deprecated, you could go in the support channel on Aztec and you would just see endless messages of
just pages
and pages of my account won't load, or I sent a transaction and it's been waiting for 5 hours. It's just spinning.
Or like I deposited a month ago and I still don't see my funds. Right.
So wait, so what is it? Is it you were talking about caching? Is it the complexity of it that is doing this?
It's mainly the download complexity, right? So it's the amount of data that your client has to download in order to essentially assemble your account state.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So and for Aztec, in Monero, a bunch of other UTXO privacy protocols, it'll be megabytes of data, huge download requirements. And, for a lot of people who just don't have fast machines, or they have old machines, or, their cache just can't get that big. Sometimes people literally just would need to go buy a new computer to even use the service.
Yeah, and there's another side, which is who are you downloading from? Okay, so this gets into further sides to this. Aztec has had third-party infrastructure that sort of helped this whole thing run. They called it a roll-up. Actually, I think that term is actually kind of misleading. I think maybe the word indexer or something like that is more accurate. It was a third-party server that Aztec ran that would help sort of serve data to these clients in a more packaged form than what the blockchain can sort of serve directly, right? Like when you go on Etherscan, it will sort of nicely list out, for example, like every transaction that went to this contract or something, right? But there's no query you can make to a full node that would actually give you that, right? You can query sort of what is the storage value now of this contract or something, but the API that you actually get with a full node is much more restricted than what you see on Etherscan, right? So this is a case where you have an extra layer of indexing that is on top of the sort of raw blockchain infrastructure, and Aztec needed this in order to keep their thing running and to serve the appropriate data to clients, right? So this is another big difference, is that when you are synchronizing your Aztec state, you're downloading stuff from their indexer, not from a node or from the blockchain directly or something like that. And there are, first of all, privacy implications of this, because you can't control who you're talking to as easily. And also there are liveness implications. For example, if their server goes down, or if it's not, the internet is not good for them, then that's a problem, right? Now with FIRN, in contrast, on the one hand, you only download, say, under a kilobyte, but who do you download it from? Just from any node, right? So any Ethereum node can serve you the data you need in order to run your FIRN client. So this gives you much more robustness and also better privacy, because you can, either run your own node or connect to your favorite node instead of having to connect to Aztec's proprietary software.
Okay. So just to go back a bit so the account structure you mentioned.
Right.
So how is that kind of different? How do you guys work with the account structure?
Yeah, so so FIRN is an account-based privacy system, whereas all the others are UTXO based. And this is kind of the key fact that makes a lot of this work. Now, I guess I can talk about what account-based and UTXO-based means. Now,
is this how you make these optimizations? Is it to do with the account structure, and that's how you?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the key fact that makes them possible. Now, what is account-based and UTXO-based? I mean, I don't know how much we need to go into this. This is really a classic thing that, like, anybody who understands Bitcoin and Ethereum technically should know what this difference is. Although when you sort of press, I think you find that many people haven't really thought that much about what the differences are. But, roughly in Bitcoin, the state you own, right? When you open up a Bitcoin wallet, it'll show a nice number. It's like you own, 4 Bitcoins, right? But what does that really mean? What that means is that under the hood, there's some collection of could be hundreds of UTXOs that are all addressed to possibly different public keys, but still ones that you control that live in your HD hierarchy. And if you take all those, you filter for the ones that you can spend and add them up, then you get 4 Bitcoins, right? But there's no number 4 sitting anywhere in the Bitcoin blockchain, right? That's an artifact that your wallet has it's a virtual number that your wallet has constructed for you, right? And when I want to send you 2 Bitcoins, I don't just subtract 2 and, sign the number 2 and send it to you or something, right? My wallet needs to sort of scrounge through my set of UTXOs and find some subset that adds to 2 or more, and spend all those and make change, right? Maybe the smallest subset I could find adds to 2.5 or something, right? So you're not going to have an even subset that adds to the exact amount you want. You'll have some leftover. So you need to then make change and send part of it, 0.5 back to me and then send to you and things like that, right? So we all know what Bitcoin is, but I find that not many people have thought through all that is involved in running a Bitcoin wallet. It's actually extremely complicated. And, sure enough, Bitcoin wallets often do use indexers, right? So when I fire up Exodus is a software wallet that used to be pretty popular, right? Does it do all that? Right. So when it wants to learn my balance, is it going to download the entire Bitcoin blockchain and figure out which UTXOs are to me or not? No, it's probably going to go to some third party. I don't know specifically how Exodus does it, but probably the actual task of finding my balance is not performed on my machine. It's done somewhere else. Now, think about how complicated all this is. It's actually pretty insane. In Ethereum, what does a wallet need to do? It needs to send one RPC query to one node anywhere, not a special indexer, just a plain regular Ethereum node. Say, what is the value at this account? That's it, right? And to send you funds, I just need to sort of take some small transaction that says send to Ether and sign it, and then I'm done. So it's really amazing what the difference is. Now, I think you can kind of extrapolate when you have UTXO-based privacy, what the complications are going to be, right? Essentially, they're everything that I just said about Bitcoin and actually much more, right? Whereas FIRN, which is account-based privacy, is kind of analogous to Ethereum, right? When I want to learn my FIRN account balance, I can essentially go to any Ethereum node and ask for one storage read, and I get a ciphertext, which when I decrypt it, my balance is there, right? With these UTXO-based schemes, right? Like let's take Monero, for example. I can't just go to a Monero node and say, give me a ciphertext containing my encrypted net worth. It just doesn't exist, right? Rather, there can be hundreds of UTXOs, like thousands and tens of thousands, which most of them aren't even to me. And maybe some are. But to even determine which ones are to me in the first place, I need to download everything and decrypt everything, right? And finally, I can't outsource this to a server the way that I did for Bitcoin. Why not? Well, for privacy reasons, right? Because that's how would that server know how to decrypt these things? Well, it wouldn't unless you give that server your viewing key, which is absolutely like not acceptable from a privacy standpoint. And bizarrely, actually, there was an early Zcash wallet that actually did this, right? Like, this sounds like a joke, but basically, if you read how they do it, they say, well, yeah, actually, you're giving your viewing key to some server somewhere, which is just completely insane.
Unchecked governments have eradicated privacy and truth. Those who resist are brought down swiftly, but we refuse to submit. Lunapunks are freedom fighters, protected by encrypted shadows. The future we're building is sovereign and uncensorable. The moonlit night is coming.
LunarDAO is an investment fund based on Lunapunk philosophy. Sovereign individuals assemble squad wealth to leverage collective strength, become investors, and allocate funds into privacy projects and anonymity tooling, building a portfolio of supported privacy assets. By this, LunarDAO supports the developing teams, expands freedom and crypto sovereignty, and captures value in the upcoming privacy cycle. Any member can exit the squad at any time. Members are anonymous, hence can build Lunapunk vision without fear of frozen funds, legal implications, or any kind of repression. LunarDAO aims to move to a full Anon setup and expand the Lunapunk forest of encryption, a sanctuary where society can redefine itself, self-administrate and regain its economic, political, and moral agency. LunarDAO also supports research on privacy technologies, listed in the wiki at wiki.lunardao.net, and educational structures such as Adalin Academy at adalinacademy.org, where people can acquire knowledge and master skills in programming and economy while developing a philosophical frame to generate the future path of the Lunapunk ecosystem. The launch is coming soon. Stay tuned and follow Lunapunk Squad on Twitter. I think that was a really good explanation. I think it's good for people to know the history of Bitcoin and sort of how it works and how complicated or overly complicated these things can get. And obviously, you're obviously trying to simplify it and do something different. So I want to talk about you said it's kind of like a private wallet, right? So like,
right.
How sort of conceptually is that done? So is it like kind of like is the wallet external to you? Is it like, are you sending something to the like almost like sending something to a smart contract? Like how is this private wallet like conceptualized?
Yeah, so it is exactly that, right? It's a smart contract that you send ether to, as well as some kind of cryptographic state. And the fact that ether is yours and not somebody else's is captured cryptographically by what's in that contract. When you want to spend your part or some of it, right, then you, under the hood, your browser will generate a zero knowledge proof saying, I want to spend 1 ETH to call some function on some contract, and here's a zero knowledge proof that my account, my private account, has at least 1 ETH in it, right? But yeah, so it's implemented through a contract, but you can view it as essentially a private virtual wallet, right? Where there is no Ethereum account that has your funds in it the way there would be in a regular wallet, but rather it's in the FIRN contract, but the ownership is maintained cryptographically, so it in some sense is a virtual wallet.
Okay, that's interesting. And so are there other things that you plan to do, with the wallet? Like, have you had any thoughts to like things like NFTs or anything like that? How would that work? What other kind of things, I guess, are you looking to or looking forward to kind of like implement or shake things up?
Yeah, so you can do a lot of things with FIRN. You could say buy an NFT as FIRN, and then the source of funds would not be visible or something, right? There is a bit of a UX issue though, which is that right now the only way to do this is to go into FIRN app.firn.cash, and when you withdraw, there's a sort of advanced mode where you can also say what your essentially contract arguments should be, right? So a simple withdrawal just goes to an address, right? But in the advanced mode, that address would be a contract address, and you can also supply essentially call data, right? So what you're really doing is also supplying a function selector and encoded arguments. And when you withdraw, it will withdraw as FIRN, and it will then call that contract with your value and with those arguments. But so UX wise though, the only way to do that right now is to actually manually enter the arguments, right? Like when I buy an NFT on OpenSea, I don't just like find the address of the OpenSea contract, find which contract function I want to call, and input my arguments manually, right? Like I would never do that. I would go to OpenSea.com or whatever. I would use their visual interface to navigate to which NFT I want to buy, and I would click buy, right? In their front end, under the hood, will then assemble all these arguments, and it will figure out which contract to call and things like that, right? And it will do all that for me, right? So when MetaMask pops up and says, "Do you want to approve this?" Who put together that transaction that I'm about to approve? Well, it was OpenSea's front end that did that for me. I would never do that myself. So what's missing right now for FIRN is a way to combine, other third-party apps front ends with FIRN, right? So what would be very nice is if I could go to OpenSea, click my NFT and click buy, but then have a sort of buy privately option. And instead of just piping the call data to MetaMask and asking for approval, it would then pipe it through FIRN, and then I would be prompted and all that stuff. So the way to do this, it seems, is to use what's called a MetaMask snap. So this is a kind of experimental feature where you can have a kind of more advanced functionality. So we actually wrote one of these for FIRN, where you can have a FIRN MetaMask snap, and it does exactly how I said it, right? So OpenSea, instead of just, once it's assembled your transaction that you want to do, instead of just pushing it to MetaMask, it would then submit that through the FIRN snap, and you would be prompted, do you want to execute this transaction privately as FIRN? So I think that's probably the future for how this stuff will work. Right now, the snaps are still experimental, and the API keeps changing. It is not really stable yet, but ultimately, I think that's the path we want to target.
Yeah. I'll also say just for standard users, we're also looking at allowing transfers of ERC20s, just arbitrary ERC20s. That's a little bit off in the future, but it's definitely coming.
Right.
Okay, so this snap thing? So essentially, how does that work? Like, obviously, there's this you said sort of like this snap thing enables you to do what you're doing, and it's experimental. But what is the idea of snap? Like, it just generally, just a brief understanding.
Basically, imagine if you could write your own code and then sort of put that into MetaMask, like a pocket of code in MetaMask that you wrote, but that other dApps can invoke, right? Like right now, MetaMask has this kind of simple API. Like from the view of the dApp developer, MetaMask is like an API that you hit. It says like submit this transaction or request a signature on it or something like that.
So is the analogy like extensions for your browser? Essentially, like extensions within MetaMask?
Yeah, it's an extension of MetaMask, absolutely, right? So you can extend it to provide extra functionality. In this case, that would be some kind of FIRN functionality. And then you essentially extend the API that dApps have access to, instead of just simple things like submit this transaction or ask for a signature. You can also say things like submit this transaction via FIRN privately, something like that.
So do you think that's preferable? Because there is this there's been this concept of like a smart wallet, right? Do you think the way that they're doing it with snaps is preferable to like previous kind of smart wallet implementations or ideas? Because there's a lot of some of these smart wallets were like custodial and like, or there's like some weird server that it's going to send stuff to, and so I don't know, what do you think about that? Is this like the future of like, quote unquote smart wallets?
I'm not sure what these smart wallets do. Can you give me some examples of like what they tried to achieve? You said some.
So just there'll be even some simple, like just imagine like a recurring subscription or something like that. It just enables them to just extends the capabilities of your wallet essentially. But typically you have it's not like you're saying, it's not like something that's built upon your existing sort of MetaMask infrastructure and integrated into that. It's like external to that. It's its own wallet, if that makes sense. Or typically it is.
Yeah, I mean, so one way to do this, other than MetaMask snaps, would be to actually just make a FIRN wallet, right? Like in theory, we could write a wallet from scratch, or say partner with some other wallet or something that would have FIRN sort of natively integrated, and then you essentially achieve the same thing, but without having to install the snap or whatever. Honestly, I think the trade-off seems better to just use snaps, because the effort to make a new wallet from scratch would be just extremely high. So I think snaps are a great concept. I hope they get merged into mainline MetaMask, at some point. I think they're on track to. I think that to me looks like the best way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, and then it's exciting to think about the developments in places that, I mean, maybe get somewhat overlooked. Like to me, this sounds like a great avenue as long as it's safe, it's secure, and we can implement these privacy features and things. Because obviously adding, again, I don't know, I'm sort of new to this, but adding complexity to the system exposes it to risks, and things like extensions, or maybe in this case, if it's a good analogy, snaps, obviously open up risk avenues. If we can do it right, then it sounds like a great idea. It sounds like it's more essentially composability, more modularity, and that's one of the things that makes DeFi itself so good in the first place. So it's kind of like, modularity or composability on top of composability. It's turtles all the way down kind of thing,
right?
Which is awesome,
right?
It's just great for experimentation. We see how far we can push this thing,
right?
So, go ahead, Graf.
Oh yeah, just to add something. So, I forgot who it was who was talking about it in the Twitter Spaces yesterday, but when Firefox added the button that said "Do not track me," they found that 80% of users clicked that button, and so we're wondering. Say you go on Uniswap and you just simply have a button that says "Make this transaction private." How many users are gonna click that button? And we think it's probably a lot. It's just once you make privacy the easy and the default option almost, people are gonna use it. And so we're really hoping that with our snap and partnering with good dApps, we can start to make privacy the default. Just click a button and you're private. So that's what we're hoping for.
Okay, yeah, I agree. We want to obviously at the same time balance kind of this kind of growth, scaling, simplicity mindset, and not let it get away from us, because that as we were talking about in a space yesterday, there's this kind of as you move towards, or at least this mindset, this paradigm of like user adoption, mass adoption, ease of use, or like user experience, which you do want to focus on. You have to have a good user experience. People don't want to use it. But there's always this balance whereas you're trying to make it easy for people to use, trying to make it a comfortable experience, not too techy. The average person can benefit from it, that doesn't have to know too much. You do fall into a trap, or it has been known, for people to fall into these traps where, the software becomes kind of passive. It becomes kind of like I don't know what I'm trying to think of the right term now, but I guess you got to be careful as all the money comes in and the adoption. You kind of don't forget the original principles. It's sort of like, just like we see things like in WhatsApp, we see an Apple and things, and there's a lot of talk about privacy. And it's in the device, it's built in, it's super easy to use, everything's encrypted. But then we look at it and it's like, is it really, or is it just like a marketing thing? And like that's the kind of trap that we tend to fall into, at least outside of the crypto space. And now that can creep into the crypto space just as easily.
Yeah, we basically built this thing ourselves. We haven't taken VC money. We're basically as sort of ground up as it gets. Don't know how else to put this, but yeah, definitely. We sort of, our values came first. Basically values, and then an interest in the math and computer science are essentially what's driving us.
Right. And I'd also say that, for a lot of other, like WhatsApp, it's really just a messaging service first, that they kind of were like, oh, hey, we're also private, Yep. We're a privacy service first.
Yeah, which nobody can prove, by the way, whether WhatsApp actually implements the Signal protocol, because it's not open source.
Right. Yeah. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. So ground up, we are purely dedicated to privacy, and even if we do reach mass adoption, which obviously we hope we do, that it will always just be privacy. We're not going to be we're not going to be integrating a messenger. We're not going to be making a FIRN WhatsApp or anything. We're here for the privacy, and we're here to stay.
Yeah, and I just to link this back to one thing you said, like sort of right at the start, and you were talking about the benefits of FIRN, and obviously the differences between like Monero, and how all this like caching and stuff is done on all these other chains. I think sort of what you just mentioned, like you grassroots or ground up, and you're not taking any VC money. I think kind of, it speaks to, like, the model speaks to your values, because you just explained it, right? There's all this stuff that you have to download. Maybe you don't have that space, right? What if you're trying to use FIRN somewhere where there's bad connection, right? Or the infrastructure of the place isn't even built up to enable you to download 10 megabytes. You know what I mean? Like maybe you're on like Edge or GPRS, or one of these old standards, or old infrastructure. And so I think that's really like enabling, and I think that does also speak to like the original values of crypto, which is like global and like permissionless, and like everyone can access it, and I think you're obviously trying to make it more accessible. And we go back again to the sort of how these things can slip away from us in the complexity and in the waves of money that wash up over crypto periodically, and so I do really appreciate the fact that that's one of the things that you brought up, and it seems like you're focusing on. It's at least it is fundamental to FIRN. So I really appreciate that, and I think that's the right way to move forward. That's really we need more of that.
For us, the fact that the wallet is efficient it's not just a thing like you don't have to wait 20 seconds or something. For us, it's much more important. It's like, can you run this on mobile devices or on cellular internet, or, as you said, someplace with just generally bad internet or slow devices. Grav made a big point, a great point about this yesterday. This is not just about being a bit faster on a sort of MacBook or a smartphone. This is about expanding the reach drastically, right?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's I'll reiterate what I said yesterday. It's the people who need privacy the most are often the ones who don't have access to fast internet or a brand new iPhone. Maybe they're using an iPhone 2 and they're using 1 bar LTE or whatever. And it's those people have absolutely no chance of using a competitor, of using Monero or using Aztec. It's just simply not possible.
Yeah.
Well, that's the distinction I was trying to make. Sorry to interrupt, but I think you just kind of spoke to what I was trying to say before, which was it's not just faster for faster's sake. It's not just faster because it's good for marketing. There's
Absolutely.
a purpose to behind it, and obviously these things. The thing about faster for faster's sake is that these are engineering feats. You know what I mean? It's like, why do we only want to waste our time and our capacity and our energy on making it faster if there's a good reason to make it faster? And we've seen a lot of these. I mean, look at Solana. Have you seen the price of the hardware and stuff that it costs to run the whole Solana network?
Oh, yeah.
It's pure insanity. Exactly. And so that's one of those things that's fallen into the trap, So yeah, I like that that there is a purpose behind what you're doing and the way that you've set it up. It's not just, it's because we want to copy. We want to be the Solana killer. It's faster than that.
Yeah, exactly.
And sorry, Grav, what were you going to say? I didn't interrupt you there.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd also say, oh no, it's fine. I'd also say, as far as efficiency goes, efficiency means you're using less compute, right? You're literally using less electricity to perform these computations. And the indexers used by other services are doing massive computations, and they're sucking tons of power. And we're in a world where power is precious, and most of that power is coming from coal burning, or oil or whatnot. We offer a significantly more efficient and less wasteful form of privacy.
So yeah, I was just making a point about the sort of battery consumption of the mobile wallet, right? Actually, one point I did an experiment where I went onto Cake Wallet, is like a Monero wallet. I went onto their App Store reviews, and it was 2.5 stars, right? And everybody was saying this thing is killing my battery, right? These are just totally real issues. A FIRN wallet is completely activityless. Your CPU will just go to zero until you actually receive a transfer. Then it will sort of spike for a bit, or if you actually want to send a transfer, it will spike for a bit. But otherwise, it's just will consume totally no resources.
Yeah, I mean, and that speaks to what are these other wallets? Why are they doing that? Again, it's just we come back to it, adding more complexity to it, and especially when you're trying to do something with some level of privacy, right? The least amount of data, the better, really.
Yeah.
So what is it doing? What are these processes and services and tasks that are running in the background? Why are
they're downloading UTXOs and they're trial decrypting them, right? Actually, just as I explained earlier, they're actually trying to do the work of figuring out what transactions are to you and aren't. You only have to do that in the UTXO model, essentially.
Okay, well, on that note, we've hit the past 15 minutes now. So I guess I want to, I suppose, first give you the floor. If there's anything you want to talk about, if there's anything you don't think you've explained that you would like to explain now, but that you think would help, the viewers, you can have the floor. And then, just where can people find you? Drop the website, I'll put all the links in the description. So yeah, you guys got the floor if there's anything you want to say.
Yeah. I would just note, so we're available on ETH mainnet, Optimism, and Arbitrum. Like all privacy protocols, gas on mainnet is expensive. If you want to try us out, I would suggest using Optimism or Arbitrum. A withdrawal on Optimism or Arbitrum is going to cost like, $4 on mainnet. Since the Shanghai upgrade, gas has been extremely expensive, as I'm sure anybody in the space knows right now. Proof verification is a computationally intensive task, and the gas is going to be quite high for that. So unless you're transacting a large amount of ETH, I would suggest that you try us out on Optimism or Arbitrum.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that, because I'm not sure, in fact, that we specifically brought that up, the fact that it is available on Optimism and Arbitrum. And yeah, I guess I imagine maybe you've got plans in the works for other protocols. I don't know. But yeah, I think probably good idea to bring that up. So because gas fees aren't the the cheapest right now.
Right. Yeah, and we definitely are planning on deploying on more chains. We're just we're getting our ducks in a row first, but that's also definitely in the future.
Okay, great. Captain, yeah, do you have any final words?
Yeah, so it's great to get to talk about FIRN. As Grav said, I encourage everybody to try us. I think you'll find that we're very easy to use. Also, we're excited to be to have found LunarDAO, and we really like everyone there that we've met. But yeah, any questions, you can join our Discord or Twitter, and we're always happy to talk.
Yeah, actually, one more thing. We do have a token, our FIRN token. It's available on Uniswap, and we have some kind of interesting tokenomics, is that we don't collect the fee. All the fees that are collected from the service are dispersed to token holders in a proportional amount based on the amount you hold of the total circulating supply, not the total supply. So we're also running an airdrop right now for depositing in FIRN. So if you can check us out at docs.firn.cash. There's also a link on app.firn.cash if you want to check out that airdrop. And thanks so much for having us, Eve. And it's been great. And we're hoping for big things in the future for all of us.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I've enjoyed this conversation. I think it's an interesting concept. You're doing something different. I'm always down for that. If experimentation and trying new models, new paradigms, which I think essentially is what it sounded like. Like it's a different paradigm, a different way to do things. And like that's just that's super cool. And yeah, it's gonna I guess educate people. You've educated people into the way that things work, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know about this stuff. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see what's to come.
Great talking.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much.
So check out the description, guys. Links in the description. I'll put all of the links there, all the ways you can get to FIRN Protocol. Join their Discord. Chat to them. We've been going back and forth for a little bit now, and as they've said, that we're been in the LunarDAO together, and that these guys are really cool, super helpful, super friendly. So yeah, reach out to them. Check links in the description. Thumbs up, like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.